hello there. Once again, my brothers and sisters, wherever you are. Hope this day finds you safe, healthy, happy, and thriving and living your absolutely best life, whatever it is you're doing, wherever it is that you're doing it. Been a long time since I did a show. There's 2022 was definitely a time of transition in my life for me and my beloved Lisa. We made a big move. We moved from Colorado to North Carolina. I lived in Colorado for 46 years, moved there in 1975. And my beloved Lisa lived with me in the same house that I lived in for 26 years. She lived with me there for 13 years. Then we moved to a townhouse where we discovered that we were not townhouse people at all. And we missed our garden, we missed a yard, so forth and so on. And some things about Colorado just weren't the same as the Colorado that both of us had fallen in love with years earlier. So we both have family on the East Coast. I have 7 siblings that live on Long Island, all within 30 minutes of the house we grew up in. In fact, my baby sister lives in the house we grew up in. I have a sister here in North Carolina in Charlotte, and my beloved Lisa has a sister in Raleigh, which was the last place I did a show from, which was from her house in Raleigh, North Carolina. But that was quite some many months ago. I had to buy a house, finally found a house, and we bought a house and we moved. And that was all, if you've ever moved, you know that is, that's quite the ordeal. And it was quite the ordeal. And we moved into a house that is about 27 years old. And of course, like any house that you move into that wasn't yours to begin with, there are issues, and we're working through those issues. But we live in a town called Mocksville. And truthfully, that's the name of the town, Mocksville, like Mockingbird, only Mocksville. It's actually named after a guy named Stephen Mock, and I don't quite honestly, I don't remember his claim to fame, but he was somebody here in this region of North Carolina. There's actually quite a few things named after the name Mock in this area. We live in a very, very, very rural area. There are 2 streets here. One house away from us runs north and south, and one that runs in front of the house that goes east and west, more or less. I'm sorry, it's exactly the opposite. The street in front of us goes north and south, and the street one house away from us goes east and west. But both of those streets end in somebody's driveway, so there's zero traffic whatsoever. You might hear a car go by here while I'm doing the show. I'm doing it in the front room of the house in my new office space here. This is where I am set up here at this particular point in time in my new office in one of the front rooms of the house. It's a very interesting move. Quite a culture shock, if you will. It's a different part of the universe, a different part of the world. It's very quiet. It's very peaceful. It's a slower moving environment in a great many ways. But like everything else, you get used to it. We've been here now for, this is the 2nd of February. We have been here now for 2.5 months. We moved in about the 17th, 18th of November is when we moved in. We bought the house in the middle of October. And here we are. And it's taking some getting used to. And one of the things that I wanted to talk to you about today was something that we all have to get used to when we make big changes is we have to get used to the stress of unpacking and all of the things. I mean, we lived in my sister-in-law Amy's house for a year, almost exactly 1 year. And for that year, 95% of everything we owned was in storage. That was an interesting dynamic because we found things when we started unpack here in Mocksville. We found things we didn't even remember we owned, and we still have lots and lots of boxes and lots of things in the garage that we have to unpack and unload. But we're getting there little by little. But it's all very, very, very stressful. You have all the things that you have to, the address changes, the new energy company, the new water company, the new cable company, the new internet company, all of those things, the new medical companies, new Medicare, because we moved, I'm still in the same state, but I moved 150 miles away, moved me into a whole different category for my healthcare. So I stayed with the same company, but I still had to reapply, if you will, or I don't know if he called it reapply, but they had to put it in a whole new set of information for me, which basically was all the same except for an address. And that's what they did to move me into new healthcare. So all those things, it's all a lot of stress involved. And I have found myself in probably the most stressful time of my life. Or I'm sorry, maybe that's not fair. Maybe in the top 3 most stressful times in my life. And the interesting thing is that it's a different time in my life. I'm over 70 years old now, and it's the stress affects you differently. It affects your sleep differently. It affects your health differently. And it's very interesting to just kind of observe it. And once you've observed it, then you have to work on it. Those of you who have followed me at all know I'm a huge fan of Dr. Joe Dispenza, and Joe's work has really benefited me dramatically in taking care of myself mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and physically, because it really centers on meditation, which has always been my main spiritual practice. My main way to connect with the divine is through my meditation. I have a practitioner of transcendental meditation since 1978. Or is it 77? 78, I believe. So over 40 years, I have been a practitioner of meditation. There was a period of time in there just before sobriety where maybe I didn't meditate as often as I do now. But for the most part, I've got a 40-plus year history of meditation, almost 45 years, really, coming up here this summer. Will be 45 years of meditation. And Joe's work, of course, centers on that meditative practice. And meditation is how I deal. That's where I get my resilience. That's where I learn to cope with the vicissitudes of life as they come and go, and sometimes they come and stay, because the stress is huge. And the stress thing it's so important because it literally is the killer. The older we get, the more stress becomes our biggest enemy as far as our physical health is concerned. Now, again, I'm getting older, and one of my favorite books in the world, I should have brought it out here because it's actually, I think it might be on the shelf behind me there on the top of my desk. It's if you can see in the middle there, it's the gold one in the middle of the pack there. It's called Growing Bolder. Growing Bolder. I learned quite a few things from the book Growing Bolder. One of them was one of my favorites, because I'm a lifelong exerciser, or at least a lifelong exerciser when I was young. And then there's a period of time when the only thing I was exercising was abuse. And then there's post-sobriety, lots of exercise. I exercise to this day all the time. And one of the precepts in that book that I truly love is, if you want to keep moving, you got to keep moving. So that's part of it. But the other thing was that this is a big deal. And I think it's a big deal for everybody. I think it's something that we need to stop and think about and recognize that this is a part of growing older, not getting old, growing older. But as we grow older, Mother Nature, Spirit, God, Father Time, whatever you want to call that overarching creative intelligence, whatever you want to call just the fact of existence, it takes things away from us. Things tend to deteriorate. Things are not as flexible. They are not as strong. They are not as vibrant. They are not as alive. They are not as attractive as perhaps they once were when we were younger. And too often, I'm sorry, sometimes you just forget to turn the phone off. And let's see here. Let's make that go away. And then let's turn the ringer off so we don't get those messages. My apologies. Too often, what happens is we lose functionality. We lose certain abilities. We lose whatever it is that Mother Nature takes from us, or that goes away because we have reached a certain age or a certain place in our lives. When we get to that place, so often people just say, and they give up. And it's like, I'm getting old. They retire to the couch and the clicker and kind of wait for the angel of death to come and claim them. But what really is the truth about growing older as opposed to getting old is that we have to learn to deal with life as it is. We cannot spend our time doing woe is me Why did this happen to me? Why am I in such pain? Why am I having this problem? Why am I having that problem? And we need to deal with life as it is and continue on and learn to enjoy life. Just because I'll use my own self as an example. I first hurt my back when I was 16 years old. So over 55 years, I've had something that just a back issue that I always needed to be conscious of my back so that I didn't hurt it. Now, as time has gone by, there has been some deterioration there. I have some disc issues, and I definitely have some sciatic nerve issues, and there's pain involved, and there's discomfort, there's stiffness. But I've said this on the show before. If you've ever watched the show many months and months ago, when I first started talking about what was going on with my physical body, my doctor told me that she gave out that diagnosis of degenerative disc disease, which always flabbergasts me because there's no pathogen involved. It's really hard to describe it as a disease, but she gives out that diagnosis all the time to older people. And invariably, the majority do what I said earlier. They just retire to the couch. She told me point blank, twice she told me, once in a phone call, once face-to-face, that my proactive approach and my positive attitude were going to make all the difference in the world as far as how I dealt with this diagnosis. Now, there's more stretching involved, and literally, it's a daily thing at this point. If I don't stretch, I hurt. And there's lots of stretching to do. I stretch before I get out of bed in the morning. I have, I don't know, 5 or 6 stretches I do before I even get out of bed. And then when I get out of bed, I do one more before I keep moving. It involves lying backwards on the bed with my feet hanging over the edge. I'm not going to give you a description of my stretch, but that's part of it, is to do that stretch as well. And I get up, having been clear that I was stiff and a little sore in bed. I get up feeling, pick a number, man, 50%, 70%, 80% better than I did when I first awakened. So that stretching is a part of life. That is part of me growing older. I have an inversion table. I use the inversion table. Probably at this point, I wasn't using it very often when I was in Raleigh, but now that we've moved to Moxville and I'm doing a lot of physical work with unpacking boxes and creating storage spaces and stuff. That's one of the interesting things about our home. It's a modular home and it doesn't have a lot of storage. So the garage has got to be remade into a storage area. And that requires some movements that maybe I haven't done in a long time. So I get some stiffness. So I use the inversion table more than I have in the past. Chiropractor I had in Colorado alerted me to the fact that the sweet spot on an inversion table is 8 to 10 minutes. He said, get to 8 and then go to 10. And that's the good spot. I think that works for me. 10 minutes. I've learned to do 10 minutes relatively easily. Listen to some music or something. And I feel better when I get off it than I did when I get on it. Sometimes I do it every day, sometimes every other day, sometimes twice a day, but I never go more than couple of days without being on the inversion table at least once. Lots of stretching, lots of inversion table, lots and lots and lots of my sponsor, CBD. CBD, I've talked about this many, many times. Understand this. And if you're watching the show, if you're watching now, if you're live, if you're watching in replay, whatever, if you're watching the show, understand this is an important piece about CBD. Each and every cell of your body has receptors for CBD. I'm sorry, that's not right. That's not really fair. Almost every cell of your body, virtually every cell, has receptors for cannabinoids. And CBD is cannabidiol, which is one of the cannabinoids in the cannabis plant. Okay. There are receptors for cannabinoids on virtually every cell of your body. Cannabinoids promote homeostasis, which is balance in your body. And they promote homeostasis in every single system of your body, your nervous system, your digestive system, your sex system, your muscular system, your skeletal system. Every system of your body is benefited by the promotion of homeostasis that CBD produces. I use my CBD, if you've watched before, I use CBD virtually every day. I take it before bed at night because it's a tremendous promoter of relaxation and sleep. But I also use it now every morning, and I may use it several times a day. One, for pain, because it really does, and it doesn't help everyone the same way for pain, so don't quote me on that, but it helps my particular pain with the sciatic nerve, and sometimes some of the pain in my back that I'll get from overworking it, like in the middle of my back primarily. CBD works for that. But at this time, when it's so stressful, going through what we're going through, and again, and part of the stress is the little odds and ends, and some big odds and ends actually, that need to be done to a house that you've just moved into. You find this thing is wrong and that thing is wrong, and this has to be fixed, and blah, blah, blah. There's a lot of moisture in North Carolina, a lot of moisture issues in our crawl space that have to be mitigated, lots of pressure and lots of stress. There is no better material benefit or material mitigant, if you will, than CBD for stress. There just isn't. Meditation is great, but you can't, in the middle of the day, if you're working on something, you can't just stop and meditate for 20 or 30 minutes. CBD does that trick for me. And I believe it will for you. The other thing that I've been using a little bit more, just really started a kind of a new today by all things, is essential oils. And, just like the CBD, the essential oils that I use is a brand called Mantra, and you can find them on the same website. I'm sponsored by HempWorks, the CBD, but also the house of brands under which HempWorks is a member is My Daily Choice, and there is a brand called Mantra Essential Oils. Take my word for it or don't, but try it. Best essential oils you'll find anywhere on the planet, period. So that's just some of what's going on with me and where I'm at and how I'm dealing with life in the moment. Part of the thing that happens with stress is that we find ourselves getting short-tempered, find ourselves getting angry. We don't deal with things as well as we should. When you get stressed, by the way, when you get stressed out, and particularly when you get stressed out to the point of anger, your body, your autonomic nervous system goes into its sympathetic mode, which is fight, flight, freeze. Okay. And when you go there, I like to express it this way, you're automatically dumber, because your brain goes into into that system that it went into when the saber-toothed tiger was chasing your butt through the forest. It goes into a system of providing blood to your extremities and to your escape mechanism, or even your fight mechanism, and it drains part of that from your frontal lobe, which is where you have intelligent, logical thought. You have less blood there. You have less going on there. Your body is prepared to do something else other than sit and think. And so you are not as smart as you would be if you were calm and collected, and you didn't allow those things to bother you. And really and truthfully, allowing stress to become manifested as other things, as anger, as fighting, as whatever, allowing that stress to do that to us is really a choice. Now, it may happen like that in the blink of an eye, but it is perfectly legit to say that in that blink, I can also go, oh, this is not where I want to be, and go somewhere else. Whether that is with affirmations, CPD, or you have the opportunity to stop and meditate, it works. It works. My good friend, Larry Widhelm, who once in a while tunes in here, maybe he'll hear this in a replay and get the kudos for this. He presented me with this book. He had posted something on Facebook from this book, The Daily Stoic, 366 Meditations on Wisdom, Perseverance, and the Art of Living. And it is quotes from the Stoics, Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, Seneca. And then there's some explanations by these two gentlemen, Ryan Holiday and Stephen Hanselman. And the book, Larry had posted something on Facebook one day, just a copy of one of the pages. And I said, wow, that's really awesome. And he told me what it was. And the next thing I know, the book appeared. So always thank you, Larry. I've been a big proponent for many, many years of the Science of Mind 365 book, which is daily readings, just like this, only with the accent being on the science of mind. And I wanted to read from yesterday, and my lighting is not the best here. I hope I can do this. Um, and this is from February 1st, and it's for the hot-headed man. Keep this thought handy when you feel a fit of rage coming on. It isn't manly to be enraged. Rather, gentleness and civility are more human, and therefore manlier. A real man doesn't give in to anger and discontent, or doesn't give way to anger and discontent. And such a person has strength, courage, and endurance, unlike the angry and complaining. The nearer a man comes to a calm mind, the closer he is to strength. That's from the Meditations of Marcus Aurelius, and and then there's an explanation going on underneath that, and I want to, of course, this is from 2,000 years ago. It's all spoken about it as far as men are concerned, because in their world, men were all that mattered. But that was, as silly as that is, it's still, I always read man and mankind as humankind. To me, it's always, so it applies to women as much as it applies to men. But the idea that we have the ability to catch ourselves, what I always call catch and correct, when we are angry, to recognize that that is not my highest self. That is a lessening of myself. That is a lowering of consciousness. The higher consciousness is always one of cool, calm, and collected peacefulness. That autonomic nervous system in the parasympathetic nervous system, where we are at rest and digest, or breed and feed, which is supposed to be our natural state. We have the ability to choose to be there anytime we want. Now, it may take a practice. It may take cultivating that. It may take learning some affirmations that maybe you don't know from previous, or, and I'll lean into Louise Hay, who's probably the world's greatest proponent of affirmations. Her affirmation work, or her affirmation lectures, or little snippets that you could find all over YouTube, they're fabulous. They're amazing. And she goes into great detail about how affirmations changed her life, from being an abused and sick with cancer human to someone who created one of the most premier, probably the premier consciousness, if you will, publishing company on the planet, and to being a world-renowned speaker and thought leader in the world, in the realm of consciousness. So Louise Hay is a great one. Joe Dispenza, as I mentioned earlier, Joe's meditations are fabulous. And you can read all these people and what they have to offer. Greg Braden, Dr. Bruce Lipton, they all have things to offer. That book that I mentioned earlier, Growing Bolder, just to give you a little bit of thought around what it's like to embrace growing older, to embrace the passage of time, and to feel comfortable and happy and enjoy life, even as we can feel things changing, not necessarily for the better. So there you go. There's a couple of pieces there. I was listening to something this afternoon from this morning. Actually, it was a part of a news program from this morning, and it was a senator, and he was talking about his decision to run for re-election, and he mentioned two Bible passages that had stuck with him, that he repeated over and over again to kind of help him make his decision. One of them is one I am hugely familiar with. It's from the book of Ecclesiastes, and it's, to everything there is a season and a time to every purpose under heaven. And of course, those are the words that the late great Pete Seeger put to music in the song Turn, 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 which then the Byrds turned into a monstrous hit in the 60s, and one of my all-time favorite songs. But he also talked, this senator talked about a quote from Galatians that I had never heard before. And I'm not a big Bible person, but there's lots and lots of great sayings and lessons in the Bible. I'll go there in a minute. Let us not become weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up. And that just struck me. That's like That hits on so many levels. Let us not become weary in doing good. And that means, on every level, doing good for ourselves, doing good in our work, doing good in our business, doing good with our family, doing good for others, doing good for the planet. Let's not grow weary of doing good. For at the proper time, we will reap a harvest if we do not give up. Never say die. Never give up. And there is a harvest. And the harvest can be something as simple. Wow, sorry, I'm dropping things here. The harvest can be something as simple as just a feeling of accomplishment, of fulfillment, of gratitude. It can be a sense of feeling fulfilled that I have done well. I have done good for the planet. I have done good for others besides myself. And I just love that expression. Do not grow weary. Do not give up under any circumstances. Continue to do good. Other thing I wanted to touch base on today was a little bit about the power of the mind and our health and nutrition. Mentioned the growing older thing, growing older, learning to live with the limitations that life presents us and to enjoy our lives. Part of that has to do with what we put in our mouths. And I am becoming more and more and more conscious that there is just so much deception going on in the food industry about what we're getting to eat, what we are what we're putting in our mouths. So way too many food-like substances and not enough actual food. And my beloved Lisa and I have started paying a lot of attention to what we're getting. So many of us who are of the mindset, if you will, of eating a more healthy diet, we do the Whole Foods thing. Whole Foods got bought by Amazon. The minute Whole Foods got bought by Amazon, you just had to start reading labels, basically. That's my take on it anyway. And we try to consume the best foods we can get our hands on, the cleanest, the most nutritious things we can get our hands on. And another thing that you learn as you grow older is that there are some foods that just don't work anymore. Pick them, man. There's just, the greasy foods, the snack foods, the chips, the lunch meat, the processed foods. They're not good for you ever, but as you grow older, they take more and more of a toll. The carbohydrates. Carbohydrates is an interesting thing. As you grow older, you need them for energy. Everybody needs them for energy, but as you grow older, you need them for energy. But you have to be cautious about what carbohydrates you're eating. Are you eating the ones, the white bread and those kinds of things that turn instantaneously to sugar? Because sugar is the death knell. Sugar is the thing that'll kill you dead. And on so many different levels, it'll kill you dead. But it's a question of learning, embracing that whole process of growing older. And again, what works? What foods work? What foods don't work? It requires a little bit of research, a little bit of investigation, but don't just go on with whatever you have always done. As Dr. Joe talks about all the time, if every single day you get up and you envision a toilet and you find yourself in front of the toilet, you next envision your toothbrush and there you are brushing your teeth. You next envision the coffee pot and there you are at the coffee pot. And then you next envision your computer and your emails and there you are checking them. And then you have your bowl of cereal. You envision your bowl of cereal and then you're sitting in front of that consuming 20, 25, 30, 50 grams of sugar. You're living in your past. You're not living in the present moment or living in a generous projection of the future. Every morning requires that we stop and we take a breath and we just think about, what do we want life to look like? What do we want our day to look like? How do we want to perform today? What do we wish, not what does the to-do list look like, but what am I expecting to do today that will enrich my life, that will enrich my relationships, my relationship? What am I going to do? What is it that I will set up as my way of being today, outside of the norm? And in doing that, I believe it is possible to heal everything in our lives, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and physically. Heal whatever needs healing. I have started to lean into meditating into a higher consciousness, getting myself to a place where I am doing what Dr. Joe refers to. I am trying to be no one, nobody, nowhere, in no time. In other words, just sitting in my meditation in the morning with the idea in mind that my goal in that meditation is to just be consciousness, to be pure consciousness. It takes work, takes time, takes an ability to go there, if you will. Used to reflect all the time on people would say, if you want to your meditations to be more meaningful or to accomplish more, you have to go deeper. And I used to wonder, what the hell is go deeper? What does that mean, go deeper? Well, go deeper turns out is really just a matter of giving yourself more time to meditate. Just meditate longer. Going deeper happens if you give yourself more time and if you just do it. Going deeper happens. So there's some thoughts for today. That's really all I have for you after months of not doing a show. I finally got my feet wet here and I did a show. What I want you to remember for me is that I mentioned to you earlier that the sponsor of my show is hempworks.com/Ken Ludwig. That'll take you right to my page. Hempworks is part of a larger company. It's a brand underneath the umbrella of that little scroll at the bottom there, mydailychoice.com/Ken Ludwig. Again, that takes you right to my page. And you will find there, you will find the mantra essential oils. You will find 10 different brands underneath there. But another one that I really want you to be aware of today is this one here, not that one, that other one. This is bodymelt.com/Ken Ludwig. If you are someone who is now you're past the resolution period, it's February 2nd now. February 1st is usually the day where all resolutions have long since been laid aside. But if you are looking to get, not just lose weight, but to get in shape and to clean out your gut, cleaning out your gut is probably the single most important factor in losing weight, is to have your gut be cleaned out. So if you are eating more nutritiously, you are assimilating that nutrition. If your gut is screwed up, you are not assimilating the nutrition from what you're eating. If you want to find me on Instagram, good luck. It's Instagram evolving_hippie. That's me. And I haven't done anything on Instagram in months, but that's another thing I'm getting back into little by little here. We thrive. New Thought Media Network thrives on your generosity, on your donations. Please go to ntmedia.org, click on donate. We're thrilled to get whatever you are moved to give to us. We are absolutely thrilled to have it. If you want to find me, you can email me at teamrocketnow@gmail.com. And what else do I have here for you? I think that's pretty much it. You can find me on Facebook at Ken Ludwig, or you can find me on my branded Facebook page of my beloved Lisa Vibrant Aging, which is also where this show streams. It streams on Vibrant Aging. It streams on Coach Ken. It streams on Ken Ludwig. It streams on New Thought Media Network and both YouTube channels, Ken Ludwig and New Thought Media Network. You can find us there. I am, as always, and have always been, immensely grateful for the great gift that is your time and your attention. I hope that you will come back and join me every single Thursday. We'll be changing the name of the show from the Vibrant Living Hour to just Vibrant Living with Ken Ludwig. And I will look forward to having you join me next week and every week. But until then, my friends, God bless and namaste.